fine.
Hi, welcome to Tea Time.
Hello, everybody. Yes, anyone who's here to join us, welcome to Tea Time. We are here with the Home Care Solutions, and we're hoping that if you follow us a little bit more, you'll get to know each of us a little bit better. We're a team of people who are helping myriad of issues for people who are caregiving in very many different situations. And I'm Laura Lee. I have a nursing background. Tia, you want to repeat your background?
I have a ministry background as well as nonprofit and hospice. And
yes. And you got Beth?
I currently am a founder and facilitator for BC Grand Family Support Group, which is Bucks County, although we do support folks from anywhere that are in need of support. Prior to that, I was in, prior to having my grandchildren, I was involved with advocacy.
Great.
And my name is Nadine, and I am an integrated health service provider.
And we got an apology from, or a regret from our friend Christy Scott, who works with seniors at the county level and here in Montgomery County. She was unable to attend for some other reasons. So we are going to miss her today, but of course, people, if you are know of somebody who wants to join us, just definitely just email us or call us, one of us, and we'll try and hook you up and have you join us. So welcome.
We thought maybe today we would continue a little bit on to what we were talked about mainly in our last session, which was caregiving that takes place for most people with grandparents and grandchildren, and grandparents taking care of children because maybe that person in the next generation might be ill, might have some addiction problems, might be really forcefully trying to go back to school. Lots of reasons, and we all know the one especially came out in COVID, which is that there are lots and lots of people who are still trying to work and take care of multiple children, keep them out of school, in school, quarantine them, and still give them an education. So that's this whole
story,
topic,
right? That was part of your story.
Yeah, how do you keep somebody out of daycare as long as you can? So and that's been from afar, going and traveling. There are a lot of people doing that now, and they have to worry about their own COVID issues. But as Beth's organization does so well, is that we're talking about caregivers who are grandparents or other family members who are full-time taking care of raising children at a particular time in their life. So we thought we might talk about that whole, even around the other way, which is, at what points in life do we know that we are having younger children and teenagers help take care of grandpa and grandma? So a full circle way of discussing it. We thought we might all continue to talk about that a little bit.
Well, did any of you take care of your grandparents?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's not true. That's not true. My great grandmother lived with us for 4 years when I was young.
And what are your memories or your experiences that you can share from that perspective, from being the
my grandmother was British. She came over on the boat. She was had all kind of funny to me sayings, and she would call us Dookie and all the, these cute little things. And what I remember about her, she was great. She always wore a dress every day. She taught us lots of things about the yard. She taught us things that we could eat in our yard, like dandelion leaves. She would say, let's make a salad today out of things from the yard. So we would do that. And she was wonderful to talk to tell about her history. Her history is very harsh. And she's just interesting. It is interesting to have different age levels. She was in her 80s when I was like 10, 12, 14.
Oh, yeah.
What did you learn from your caregiving experience or living with your grandparents or helping your grandparents, Nadine?
So my grandfather moved with us when we lived in a duplex in one town, and we moved. So when I was in third grade, he moved in with us and lived with us. And so he was a magician and I was a magician's assistant. So it got me up on the stage. But when it came to caregiving for him, he kind of ended up more into the veterans facility, and then went through that. So the caregiving became very separate, and it was very difficult to go from being a part of his everyday life to now there's all these other people that are involved in his care. And, I mean, from the time I was born, he was in my life. And then, other grandparents, it was always like, I don't know why, maybe you guys can understand and remember, but there's always just that one person. Like when you bring grandma home from the nursing home, somebody's got to change the diaper, and who is it? Well, her son doesn't want to necessarily do it all the time, so it's the wife that does it, or the daughter-in-law, or so what about you, Laura Lee? Did you ever have those kind of experiences that kind of just, all right, I'll be the one?
Yes, and I do think that in my case, it's sort of being a baby boomer. My dad, for the first several years, was not around. As my grandmother said, he'd come home every now and then to make sure another one was going to come along. And we all lived together. I lived with aunts for a long time. I was the only baby toddler with 4 aunts, and still single at home with my grandmother and my grandfather. And I grew up that way a little bit until Daddy actually came home for good post-Korea. So I knew my grandparents from the beginning, just like you might know your parents too. I mean, right from the beginning, stayed in their home. And my grandmother was an amazing matriarch and caregiver of everybody. And she just passed that down, to everybody. This is what we do in our family. This is how we rise to the occasion and care. So when it came time for her having issues, my aunts all had a schedule of taking care of her for a home as long as they could. And then we got to be teenagers and older, the cousins, and we took turns and took dates and at times to take care of her too. And yes, at a very early age, some of us, mostly all girl cousins, but we all took turns. We all knew how to go together and change grandma and, make that happen. So I do feel like very, very lucky if it's instilled in you from a very young age. It's not such a big deal. It still might be for the male cousins. But
I learned how to make poached eggs the right way for my papa. The exact amount of time to put on, and I can remember, walking down from my house and going into his house, and my grandmother had passed, and it was mandatory to deliver the exact British breakfast the way he needed it, and he was adorable. He was so sweet about it. But there was definitely a good process. So it's neat to see the beauty that can come from intergenerational caring, and what I heard in this conversation is the transfer of wisdom, that, and the transfer of culture and the transfer of knowledge, how to do things, whether it's gardening or magic tricks or make a poached egg or change
and the legacy we get from them. Yes, such a legacy you end up getting.
Yeah, it's really a blessing.
Up close and personal,
And I really liked how Laura Lee brought up that she was raised by her grandparents, and my mother was raised by her grandparents as well. Beth, sometimes it feels like you're the only one going through this, and I'm sure you guys feel kind of really strained, but during war times and during other times, there's been other times where this intergenerational thing, because Beth raising grandkids, she was done raising kids, and now it's back in her lap again, and trying to navigate life and expenses and finances and emotions and health. Beth, do you ever feel like notice the moments that you're imparting wisdom on the kids that you have?
I do. I remember thinking when I had my own kids, I would call it teachable moments. But it's a little bit different this time around because it's been so many years and things are so very different. When you tell them about things that were pre-computer and pre-cell phone, and it's not something they can envision, particularly at young elementary age, but yeah, you do. You teach them everything, just like you did when you were a parent.
The teachable moments are two ways. They're teaching us technology.
Yeah, I was just
teaching
going to say that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hand them the telephone and go, do this, please.
Well, and we even see kids now are teaching folks who grew up with technology and are tech savvy. They're teaching them the new tricks that are coming out with the new stuff. So it's
Sure.
it's really hard to stay on top of it. So I can't imagine.
Very hard to stay on top of it.
How fast things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different reasons that caregiving happens intergenerationally. For me, it was, I don't even know why my grandfather started, he lived in an apartment downstairs. And so when my parents bought the house, he roomed with, like, when we first moved here, we were all young enough to be in one bedroom, my brother, my sister, and myself. And he had his own bedroom. Well, as we got older, my brother and him shared a bedroom for his entire life. And when my in-laws became challenged in health, we had them move in with us. And so my children became supportive in their caregiving. And to the point that, they were integral in, okay, who's babysitting Poppy this night and who's going to do this? And, setting up the schedule like Laura Lee was referring to. And my son says to me now, he's 28 and I'm 53. So I'm hoping we have a little bit more time then. But I said something to him, don't worry about me. I'm going to go into a nursing home. You won't have to take care of me. And he goes, Mom, that's not what we do in our family.
That's not what we do.
You'll move in with me. Like, that's the plan. And it's interesting that I never meant to instill that intergenerational line, but he's just like, duh, like, Mom.
He's grown up with it. Yeah.
No, we say that, but what pops into my head is that all is true, and that's been our experience. But I also, just from the folks that I've connected with, and I'm sure, Beth, the folks that you are seeing on a regular basis through your mission, is that whole the isolation. Like, we used to have more connected family groupings, but for whatever reason, whether it's pandemic or travel or different expectations, or the phrase, I don't want to be a burden. Right now, if when it becomes not that group, but that bigger family connection piece where everybody's supporting each other, and it just becomes grandma and grandchild, maybe a 60-year-old and a 5-year-old, like, and you have two folks that have a lot going on in terms of their needs. Beth, can you guys speak to your experience with that? Like, what am I trying to get at?
Well, as far as the isolation goes, that happens to everybody right away. Because some friends drop off, other people offer to help, but you don't know what to ask, when, that kind of thing. And this week, I just got an email from another grandmother. I'm in a grandparent support group, facilitators group in Pennsylvania. And she's having, the other grandmom that runs it is having somebody from Congress come in on Zoom and talk to us about what do we think would be the top support type needs that we need. So I sent it out to my grandparents, and somebody got back and said, I've been a grandparent for many years, but I just found your group. There needs to be more information out there for grandparents because of the alone feeling and the you just need support. We need support in every part of our lives, whether it be our girlfriends or husbands or whoever it is we hang out with or talk to about our issues in our lives. And it's hard to relate to other people being a grandparent raising grandchildren, because that's not what most people are doing. But there are 90,000 of us in Pennsylvania.
Right, that number again. Yeah.
Big enough number.
Well, from a spiritual perspective and a healing perspective, as a therapist, what I work with people on is to understand that, the first thing when we have an event happen to us is isolationism. So we isolate so we can kind of take stock, like, hold on a second, what's going on in here and what's going on in here? And what am I dealing with? Who do I have to deal with right away? And that's a natural thing. And the natural process of healing does incorporate expanding outward into a network and then teaching and leading that network, as you move down that process. And Tia, you probably could speak to this much better than I could. Tia, do you think that there's anything that Beth could do that would be intentional in other than, obviously starting the program and leading the program, but what kind of things do you think from a spiritual perspective that she could do intentional that would help her in this isolation piece?
Well, so the one piece that the Boots and Wings Project, our solutions for caregivers, educational component, whatever, as one of the number one things that we are encouraging everybody to do, no matter what age, is to build your wraparound team and make it known who your team is. And there's, we used to have family that was more extensive and culturally was more just expected. And then we also had our faith-based organizations, that were there, and those have kind of shifted in terms of, there's some that are great with small groups and building mini families inside those organizations. But there's a lot of people who, when a health event happens, they do have that isolation. If they know in advance, or if you've built that wraparound team beforehand, and you really thought about, okay, if I know nothing's going to happen, but if something were to happen, in the same way, identifying not just who you would call, but really who is going to be there, what role are they going to play? Have you talked to them about it beforehand? There's a lot of sort of just advanced planning that can take away stress, which will eliminate some of that existential crisis that some of us go through when we haven't planned ahead. If you know where your family is going to meet up after something that's happening, like go meet under the big tree if there's a fire, right?
Like the fire plans that we
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But if you don't have a plan, you're going to be, what do we do? Who's done the research about one aspect or has to go into that mode? Is the neighbor allowed in or not? If the neighbor's the only one close by, there's just, and think about, I guess, those little things, who's going to take care of the flowers if you're, if that's something that one or the other of us did. But it's a little trickier with grandparents and grandchildren because of that divide. So who's going to help bridge in the event? And I was just talking to somebody today, and she said, yeah, if something happens to me, the person who is my legal guardian, that I'm a guardian for, I have no, like, we have another person, but we have no real, process in place. And so the process there's always something that's going to change, but at least who the players are, even if they're not family. So
yeah, who's your family of choice for that, and who's got your back?
Yeah.
And I think the hard part, which Beth might see a lot, are people that say, I'm it. We have lots of people caregiving to others who say, I'm it. I'm the only one. And that's that immediate, let's go in, and that might be true, but that we've got to keep exploring and opening up for our own healing. who could do something for me that I'd be comfortable having a discussion with, and just start trying to grow your own needs and find the people that can bring that to you. You know, where's the reciprocal? We sometimes have to help folks find somebody else so they're not lonely, because they haven't even started thinking. It's that they're just going.
Well, and there's also the control piece. You know, I'm a caregiver. I want to control it because nobody can do it as good as me. And,
Sure.
you know,
Or I've
I
been
don't
living
train
this
anybody.
way. Or I've been living this way for so long that I don't,
Yeah.
that to let go of it creates more anxiety than to just hold on to it.
Yeah, that's
Right? Like, so there's a lot of anxiety in that regard too, from a caregiver letting up that care. Yeah.
And remembering that every single individual is on their own journey and is to be respected for A, the fact that they're giving care, and B, that their journey is their journey. And we have ideas. All of us may have experiences and ideas to help them discover, but we want to honor that experience and wherever they are, and come alongside and be supportive and say, okay, well, what do you need next? Then this is what you should do now.
Oh, definitely.
Right? So that's
Meeting where they are. Yeah.
Well,
I thought this was really important. I wanted Beth to be able to just say those few services that were available for the grandparents caring for grandchildren in the state of Pennsylvania. You said that there were some nonprofits that were out there. Respite care. Yes, that was very important. So, you know, you have those grandparents, and if they are the only ones, we do understand. I know about respite care for seniors, but and that's a good thing that you can get a wraparound team in place too. What kind of social services can wrap around and help you? So what were those respite the children's respite care societies that you talked about?
One is called Bethany Christian Services, and they will offer. They interview you, make sure it's a fit for their organization, and they will offer either planned and or emergency child placement. They try to match you with a family. They go to churches to find families for this program, and they try to fit somebody locally. We have used them and they were wonderful. And they just began to do the grandparent respite. They had done other respite for many different reasons, but grandparent was new to them when we used them a couple years ago. I had asked my mom and my sister to help me out a couple times to get a break. And my mom was finally just, I'm a little old, I can't do this anymore. And my sister and she were doing it together. My cousin was helping, but it became too much. You know, other people aren't used to little kids. I'm used to it, but they're not.
And I don't know about the children part of it, but I would certainly explore that with Nancy's House, which is also respite for caregivers. And Nancy's House might have, they're out in Wynwood, and they may have a great opportunity for children that we're not aware of.
All right, I will investigate that.
Nancy's House, Elise is the executive director.
Elise.
Elise.
Okay.
Great.
Also, there's another group called Child and Family Focus. It's a non-county related group, and they have many different types of services. I actually just asked them to come and speak at one of our meetings, and one of them is respite. You have to be a client already receiving services, but that's another one. And they're great. I mean, you know, you would, in a normal situation outside of grandparents raising grandchildren, you would say to your friend, I'll babysit yours if you babysit mine, so to speak. But I mean, I already have two. Do I want one or two or three or four more? Not really. Not really.
Might not be right.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to say it's time, but I just want to thank you each for coming again. And
Thank you.
We appreciate all your insights and stories and sharing. And this is the way that it gets done, that we help each other grow and learn. And so I'm honored to be a part of this conversation with each of you.
Myself too. Thank you so much.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Be well.
Be well.